can answer to, but I'm going to give you just a minute to pick up on any point that really resonated with you tonight and you just want to comment on. I'm very aware for the rest of you of the clock. We're just over 9 o'clock, but I can assure you we'll finish within 10 minutes if you can bear with that. Thank you. So,
I want to pick up the issue about inequality, because lots of people in this room, actually I think everybody in this room probably agrees with what people have been saying about inequality. Not only does it destroy lives, but it destroys society. And all the stuff that Richard Wilkinson and Kate have put together in their Spirit Level books and all the research that they've done is screaming out there, and we need a centre-left government to take that on board and to deliver it and to respond to that. If we don't, I don't think it's going to happen in society and in our country as well. And one other thing, Blueprint for Better Business we're working with in Liverpool, which actually has 5 principles around trying to make sure that business is purpose-driven, not just profit-driven. So the more we can link up with businesses, which we're doing in Liverpool and elsewhere, the better. And they focus in that, including living wage, in-work training progression, salary differentials, all of that. So we need to do it upstream and downstream.
thank you, Jane. Tom.
Is this working? Well, the point I want to pick up on was the last one that was raised about what is no. I'll just shout. So the last point was, what does a progressive alliance actually look like? How does it work? The way I see it is that it's not an alliance where loads of political parties agree on a manifesto and we all have to sing off the same hymn sheet. We agree that we need electoral reform so we have a decent electoral system and we can actually have governments that represent the vote. So that would involve agreements over maybe the 50 or 60 most marginal seats in the country. So there's about 10 seats in the country where the Green vote was larger than the Conservative majority. So if we could get a little something in return, we could stand down those 10 seats, 10 and then maybe 10 non-Tory MPs could be elected. Now that could happen in a number of other places, different parties doing it in different ways. And the end result is we have a kind of coalition government that hangs together, we get a new electoral system, and then the next general election after that, we all go away and fight on our own platforms, find what makes us distinctive and what we really care about, and people can vote for what they believe in and get the government they deserve.
Thank you.
Right, 3 quickies. Firstly, the problem with Parliament is there aren't enough people on both sides of the House who've ever had a real job. I don't care whether they've been a captain of industry, run a council, run a trade union. Too many of them have been researchers, become junior ministers, etc., and worked up through the ranks. We need real people in Parliament, not plastic ones. The second thing is, thanks for the invitation, because I think you're right to challenge people like us, but you've now got to do something about it. I'll go and speak to any organisation in any part of this city about my beliefs. You mightn't agree with them, but I'll come and have that dialogue. And I'll say that to everyone here. I'll come and talk to you. I'm sure Tom and others will as well. But you've got to ask us. I can't make community meetings, though. If you ask, I'll come. And lastly, just new people in politics. One of the things that saddened me, because I haven't really mentioned my party, you know I'm a Liberal Democrat, is that 3 of the people here just chose to talk about what's happening in their party. You'll never build a progressive alliance if you look inwards. You've got to look outwards. You've got to find relationships with people outside your own core, because none of us have enough people alone to take on the Tories, and that's just a fact. So let's look outwards, let's not look inwards, and let's not forget that it isn't only the Labour Party that people are joining. My membership in Liverpool is 3 times what it was 14 months ago.
Thank you. Any of the members of the community panel want to wrap up with any particular point?
I think, I still think that the education is a big thing, and what John said about young people, I think it's young people that need to be involved, but as well other minorities, people who are so disengaged and so unhappy. And I think somehow we need to hear their voices. And yeah, I think we need to change the language of politics, because it just excludes most of people. I think even what you said about the political alliances, I don't actually know what you mean, So I would like the language of politics to be more simple, so it's more inclusive. Otherwise, you just exclude me.
Thank you. Working together for a good society is a nice alternative.
Better, thank you.
Yes. Okay, does Odette or Jake want? Yes? Okay.
Can I just say, since the British people have spoken to leave the EU, we have to respect that now and move forward instead of dividing. Politicians are falling apart, the communities is being divided, and since then we've got racially motivated abuse has really gone up, hate crime has gone up. I think all this have to stop, and this is coming. From where I stand, I think when the media portray bad images of immigrants, people just take advantage of that, and then crime just goes up. And that is not what we want for our community. We want a better community. We should work together and love our neighbors and respect our different cultures and move forward.
What a lovely comment. Right, okay, Lisa, please. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll move around here because otherwise I'm going to some facts. One of the things that I love about Compass and coming to Compass events is that you get rooms full of people like this who hate the sort of tribalism that exists in modern politics and want to see us break out of it. And I share that. I'm desperate to see that happen. I hate being pitted against people who share the same vision of social justice that I do because of party boundaries, because of geography, because of race or gender or any other factor at all. And I was started to feel really hopeful about that, and then I started listening to some of the comments. I started to feel quite in despair, if I'm really honest, because one of the really painful things that is happening in my party at the moment is that we are being tugged apart by two opposing wings of the party, and we are in danger of separating firmly into those tribes that people like me have spent all of our lifetime fighting so hard against. I think that there is only one way really through this. We have to remember, first of all, whichever side of the Jeremy Corbyn debate that you're on, and I'm going to say it because this is the issue that many people raise, whatever side you're on, I think we ought to be able to accept that people make decisions based on their own conscience, and I think also we must be able to respect each other's decisions and listen to what each other has to say. I think we have to remember that nothing worth doing in this country was ever done alone. Individuals do not change the world, we all do. And I will not allow a culture to develop in politics that silences people who disagree or dissent or who seek to speak out. In my view, that is what got us into this mess in the first place, is that we didn't allow people to speak up and act in accordance with their conscience. I didn't accept it in the New Labour years, I will not accept it now. And in the last few months, I have been absolutely overwhelmed by how angry and toxic the political debate has become, and the sort of space that is created, especially, I think, for young women, but I think for a lot of people as well. And I'll say to you, for people like me, who every time we speak in a public arena are subjected to a torrent of abuse and threats, I would just say to you this: don't feel sorry for me, feel sorry for all of us, because that is what gets us into this mess. And some of the most hopeful things that I've heard tonight have been from these young women over here. You talked about speaking out, having the courage and the confidence to realise that it's people like you who change the world. And I am absolutely committed 100% to defending the right of people to speak out, not even when I agree with them, but especially when I agree with them. It was Clement Attlee who said that socialism is a more exacting creed than its competitors. It doesn't demand submission and acquiescence, it demands constant and active participation. That is what's going to get us through this. We cannot allow the political debate to become dominated by angry voices that seek to silence other people. Wherever you sit in British politics, whatever the side of the debate you're on in the current divisions in the Labour Party, people must be allowed to speak, they must be respected, and they must be heard. Thank you.
I think I'd just like to say, first of all, thanks for having me, giving me an opportunity. I'd also like to say I think some of the panel members have been brilliant, and the young man here, I think, thought that was nice. And yeah, I just think for like just for a question for young people to Labour, I think I'd like to see more advocacy on our behalf to get more of our voices there in these sort of circumstances. That's asked before by Paul, whatever he's asking, about what I felt hopeful about, and I think that's probably what I feel hopeful about, more voices being different backgrounds in society and these types of things happening. So.
Thank you, Jake, and thank you for your
A few thoughts. The person from the floor who said we haven't mentioned neoliberalism, everything that I said was about neoliberalism. The economic system that we've had in this country, which has become more and more extreme, as ideas that were once crazy have become more and more supposedly mainstream, lies at the heart of a great deal of what I spoke about. I apologise if I didn't use the word neoliberalism. I don't use it in Merthyr Tydfil either, I have to tell you. But nonetheless, that's exactly what I was talking about. And my discontent and dismay with neoliberalism is every bit as pronounced as yours is. But if we're going to push out of that, right, it strikes me that the first thing we all need on all sides is a certain degree of humility. Humility is what's lacking from our politics, right? So to those comrades, and I'll use that word, who said that they were dismayed that Momentum hadn't been asked to speak here, this is the elephant in the room, I'll ask you, and the answer may be yes. Have you asked Compass, who organised this meeting, formally to speak on the platform at any of your Momentum meetings? What's the answer?
Anybody, any organisation in Liverpool is welcome.
No, but have you've been known formally not being asked to speak on the platform. Have you formally invited Compass?
Individuals.
No, ask Compass to speak at any of your... I'm not going to make a big sectarian point, but I don't want to. I'm just illustrating the point that it cuts both ways. Okay? As well as neoliberalism, a word that I frequently use in what I write, and like most people here, I'm fully aware of the iniquities of it. The other problem that we've got, the key problem that we have, is a political system largely created over the last 40 years or modified by neoliberalism itself. And that, in the first instance, before we get to the economic system, this is the great insight of Podemos in Spain, right? Before you get to the economic system, you've got to fix the political system. Political democracy first, economic democracy after that. So it's great tonight that we've been talking about proportional representation. It's great that we've been talking about votes at 16. I mentioned ideas like local-only shortlists and open primaries. We need to talk about political finance. That's another elephant in the room. That's what screws our politics. When Theresa May, for all her progressive talk, will go to the Tories' black and white ball, and there'll be hedge fund managers there writing huge cheques for the Conservative Party. That poisons our politics. But if we're going to fix all this, we need that progressive alliance that we talked about. And the single biggest party within all that, let's be honest, is the Labour Party. So to that degree, the single biggest ball is in Labour's court. Where is the Labour Party on proportional representation? Where is the Labour Party on serious political reform? It's a question we need to answer now. I know why Jeremy Corbyn's the leader of the Labour Party. I went to all those hustings, and I couldn't understand either what Andy Burnham and Yvette Cooper and Liz Kendall were talking about. In terms of the political failings of the Labour Party and the humility it's failed to demonstrate down the years, I had 10 years, I had a belly full. Every time I criticised Tony Blair in print, I wrote a book about this, about trying to depose him. I was called Old Labour. Bloody Old Labour. Telling me I was part of the 19th century or something. So There was a terrible amount of political intolerance and a lack of humility during that period. Tony Blair used to talk about the forces of conservatism. If you try to put yourself up as a candidate against someone who'd been parachuted into a safe seat in the new Labour years, good luck, right? The well was poisoned then. So I understand completely why a radical anti-austerity, more participatory politics involving large numbers of young people has taken root in the way that it's had. But again, it cuts both ways. And if you've got an atmosphere at the moment in which someone like me writes critically about Jeremy Corbyn and what's going on in the Labour Party, and straight away I get called a Blairite. I'm not a fucking Blairite.
We don't all call you that.
No, I know. I'm coming on to that. And of course, right, people who've been brought into Labour politics since last summer, the majority of people that I meet express exactly the same opinions that you do. But there is a problem, as there was in the New Labour years, with a vocal minority. The difference is, in the New Labour years, the vocal minority was at the top, I suppose. But social media kind of puts a megaphone over that vocal minority now. And as Lisa said, it makes the atmosphere toxic. And the problem with that is, if that stays where it is, if it gets louder, if there's a sort of triumphalism comes with it, if Owen Smith's name is mentioned at that rally in Manchester and everybody boos like he's a pantomime villain, I worry about that. And I worry about it because of the turn that politics has to take now. We have to understand that even if momentum is insurgent, and Jeremy Corbyn is the best thing that's happened to British politics in years and all the rest of it, the Labour Party on its own won't make the changes that we're talking about. We need to look wider than that. And if there's not humility and civility within a party, how can there be humility and civility without parties? That's the question. The most salient question anybody asked, how is all this going to work? We don't know yet, right? Karl Marx, I think, it's a Marxist theory, the theory of praxis. You find out why you're doing something by doing it, right? And equally, you find out how you're doing something, but how you do something by doing it. And that's what we have to do. So it might be premature at the moment to talk about electoral pacts, who's going to do what, who's going to have which seat. It's quite a tedious conversation right now. The point is to carry on having discussions like this, in which people from across the entire progressive family, as Lisa called them, are represented, and talk in this atmosphere of mutual tolerance and respect. That's all I'm going to leave you with now. To use a cliched maxim that I'm heartily sick of, but which applies in politics, let's keep calm and carry on.
Okay, thank you very much, John, Lisa, the panel here, and the community panel. Just give me 5 minutes to wrap up if you would. First of all, obviously a big thanks to everyone who's come here and spoken. A very big thanks to all of you for coming, for listening patiently, for joining in the conversations, for making your points, all of which are important, and we've noted them. But please, as I said before, if you want to make additional points, use that feedback sheet on your sheet, or on your seat. That's what we'd like you to do. We feel that we'll send a brief report out after this meeting, so I think we've got everyone's email addresses, and then, as we did after the last Together We Can, when there's news to pass on, we'll continue to communicate with you that way. I'd like to thank the planning group who put this together. There were Paul, Chris, John, Marion, Judith Farley, Mike, James and Bernie, who worked pretty hard to do this. We've done it in 12 days, incidentally, which is in quite a hurry to get this up together. We have one thing we wanted to do, a quick show of hands, and it was to ask you, that on your seat there's a small slip of paper with 3 points we want. This is not a vote, it's a show of hands. We want to know whether you endorse these points, that we want a fairer, more proportional voting system to be introduced at the new city region, including at the new city region level. Do we want a different voting system? Show of hands if you do. That's very widespread. Okay, thank you. The second one, that we should go forward. These are things we might do as we take forward with local councillors and others. As we go forward, we must explore ways in which citizens and civil society can become an integral part of the new democratic system of accountability here in Liverpool. Not simply reading the newspapers about what has been done, but joining in the discussions about what should be done. Can I see a show of hands about people who would endorse that? Again, very well supported, thank you. And finally, that we work together to strengthen our bonds of solidarity and friendship with the people of Europe and the wider world in these dangerous times. Well, isn't that lovely? We do share a lot. Yes, these are easy platitudes in a way, but I think it feels positive when you know you're in a room. We've heard differences expressed this evening. There are differences, but when you're in a room where you know that most people believe what you believe and are committed to working, we have to work. It won't just happen because we came here tonight, to working to take it forward. I want to thank you as well. John, thank you as well for the contributions that you made tonight when you came in, or as you mentioned. For the first time ever, we've had a compass meeting where we don't go away laden with debt. Very generous this evening. Thank you all for that. Finally, we hope we'll see you again. We'll notify you of things that go on. But right now, the beer's not bad in the pub, the post office over the road. Some of it will certainly be going over there after this. So we hope some more of you will as well and join us there.